And there is often a perception from people who haven't been through that process before that all an M&A advisor will do is try and push a transaction through and not look at what's right for you. Is that how you felt it was with working with Mark, or would you say that's probably an unfair assessment of the help?
I think we have to be realistic. Mark was there to close a deal because that's how he makes his money and how the company makes the money. And so that's obviously a very strong priority for him. On the other hand, there was never a time where we felt he was pressing us unduly to go against what we believed our interests were. So he handled that very well. I think from the other thing to bear in mind is if you have an M&A advisor, even if sometimes you feel that they are pressing in the wrong way, and I said we didn't have that experience, you always retain the last word. The buyer can say, it's going to be like this. Your advisor can say, that's the best you can get. And as we learned the first time around, we can say, yeah, but that's not good enough. And we're pulling out. So in some ways, it doesn't necessarily matter if you feel the M&A advisor is going only for a deal, because if you then understand that that's what's happening, you can factor in your knowledge of that to the decisions and the discussions that are coming up. And it can still be useful, even with a pushy M&A advisor, which Mark wasn't and isn't, I'm sure. But I think that can still be useful because they do nonetheless have an understanding of the client process in the M&A procedure, as well as the vendor process in the overall M&A, as well as the ins and outs and the possibilities and the impossibilities of things that go on during the many, many stages of an M&A discussion. And having that insight, even with someone you feel may not have your best interests at heart, which can happen, I'm sure, but I think it can still be very useful indeed. But you then do have to be very careful about how you pick the information out of what's been given to you, so you take only the useful stuff and don't feel pressured into doing something which you're not going to be comfortable with in the long term.
And did you always feel like Mark had your best interests at heart?
He understood, I think, very early on what it was that we wanted out of a deal, and there was never an occasion where he pushed and pushed beyond the boundaries that he'd come to understand. There were definitely times when he pushed and said, look, good enough is good enough. Are you sure you can't accept this? And I think that's part of his job. If he didn't come and push us on some things where we were happy to be pig-headed or dogmatic, then he wouldn't have been doing his job properly. Part of his job is to make both client and buyer, both buyer and vendor, understand that it's never all going to be perfect. And if we want a deal, both sides need to make compromises. And I think Mark did that very well.